Hi everyone, and welcome to Property 118 Meets. My name is Gabriella, and I'm pleased to say we are joined today by Mick Roberts, one of Nottingham's largest landlords to house benefit tenants. Thank you for taking the time to join me today, Mick, and welcome. How are you?
Yeah, okay, good. Hello, everyone. Yeah, good.
Perfect. So before we get started on all the challenges facing landlords in the private rented sector at the moment, I want to go back in time a little bit and ask how your landlord journey got started. And as I mentioned in my introduction, you're known as one of Nottingham's largest landlords to house benefit tenants. So was this always your focus?
Yeah, I started roughly 97. My first house I actually bought was for actual mate that was living in a flat and couldn't get anywhere. He had a baby and a missus. So I actually bought him somewhere, and the mortgage was 150 a month, and the rent was 300. And I thought, this is a bit bloody easy. And that's how it started. And I bought a few more, and the mortgage was 150, the rent was 300, and I just carried on. And it just snowballed from there. And I officially stopped buying in 2004. And then in 2008, I bought another 18 and 19. I didn't want any of them. The agents were begging me to have them. Just please, there was all off price. I didn't want any. I'd got enough. But there was all off price. And I thought, well, the numbers are going to add up. And they were saying, mate, the agents couldn't sell them. I don't know, you're probably too young to remember. But in 2008, they could not give houses away. And then I stopped buying then. And then since around 2009, I've bought around 29 houses, and they've all been for tenants that's found them for themselves. Most of them have been for tenants that couldn't get anywhere, couldn't make me buy it. And I thought, well, the numbers add up, and that's what I've done. And then I actually stopped in 2018, I think 18, 19, when licensing came in. I thought, no, I've had enough now. So that's my landlord sort of journey. And what was your other question about focusing on benefit tenants, was it?
Yeah, was that always your focus or?
No, it wasn't initially. It just sort of snowballed from there. Tenants were desperate, and I sort of got a bit of a name for accepting anyone. And then before you know it, they tell their mates, they tell their mates, they tell their mates. And I'm a little bit common, if that's the right word, a bit normal, not posh, and I couldn't stand posh people. And I suppose I related to them because we were sort of both on the same wavelength. They wanted a bit of rough and ready, and I just got them in the house. And it suited me from a financial point of view because they didn't even want. I said, listen, I've got to put a kitchen. No, I want the house now. Well, I've got to do a kitchen. No, give it me now. And before I know it, I've got someone in, and I've got a few months worth of rent to pay for the kitchen that I should really have done before they moved in. But with the housing market as it is, people can't wait. But I've done a full U-turn on that now, and I'm no longer taking benefit tenants purely because of the system, not the people, because of the system. So yeah, that's my sort of story for starting.
Wow, that's amazing to hear, actually. And I know you were touching on a little bit earlier about the licensing. So that's also a topic I wanted to talk to you about because obviously in Nottingham we've had the second licensing scheme coming
Yeah,
into effect. And so obviously the
yeah,
council say the licensing scheme is aimed to give private tenants better quality accommodation and
yeah,
management, as well as
yeah.
protection from bad landlords.
Mm.
But how has the introduction of selective licensing in Nottingham affected you as a landlord, in your opinion? And I mean, what impact has it had on your tenants as well?
Well, it's affected me. It's making me go nuts. It's good making me go crackers. You're being asked to do things that for example, when it first came in 6 years ago, I had to find a boiler clock. I always remember, I had to find a boiler clock for a tenant. It might have took me 10 minutes, half an hour. And then I was on the phone to licensing. I've got to get this. And he says, Mick, but you've got to do this form. I know, but this tenant's got no heating. Yeah, but you've got to do this form for us. And that's what licensing's done. And when licensing first come in, all as landlords, oh my word, they're going to inspect. And this tenant damaged the house 20 years ago, and they're now going to inspect that and make us fix their damage, spend 5,000, 10,000 on their damage that we think they're going to damage again. And that's what we initially thought licensing would do, but we found out it's nothing like that whatsoever. And licensing's actually made houses worse. It's probably found some bad houses, but the majority of houses have got worse because the funds have gone on licensing. And landlords have had enough now. And tenants don't ask for anything anymore because they know all the other mates, landlords, have sold because of licensing. It's not rocket science, isn't it? If you're spending £900 on a license fee, or you're going to spend 2-3 grand on a kitchen, you can't do the kitchen because councils had the money. And that's what we found out about licensing. It's more paperwork. It's run by, I'm not going to call them kids, but people that know little about housing. And you've got licensing on one side of the council, get the landlord. You know what? In my opinion, I've done a new boiler, I've got a new kitchen, I've got a new bathroom, I've done a great job. Oh, but you got to pay £900 charge. Well, what for? I've done a good job because that landlord up the road 2 miles away, he's done a rubbish job. Well, it's nothing to do with me. Yeah, but we need your money to go after him, and that's what licensing's done. That's how we can sum licensing up in Nottingham. It's cut choice right down. It's made landlords be more selective. So, one of the conditions in licensing when this curse come up was 2018. I don't know if it's in the latest conditions. Was we're responsible for the tenant's grass. Hang on a minute, she's not cut up yet, but you've got to make sure she keeps her lawn. So I said, hang on a minute, you gave me this tenant 20 years ago, and you said, Mick, this is from the homeless section, she's no good, she don't cut her lawn, but we'll always be with you. She will not mow the grass, but we'll support you. And then 20 years later, the same council said, Mick, you are now responsible for the grass. And that sort of sums licensing up.
Mm, no, it has definitely affected a lot of people, not just in Nottingham, but also elsewhere as well. And then, I mean, one of the other questions I wanted to ask you about was in the media, we tend to kind of see this negative stereotypes of landlords, you know, all landlords are bad sort of thing. But obviously, we know that isn't true because not all landlords are bad. But how do you feel about the fact that landlords are often badly perceived in certain parts of the media, in your opinion?
It sells programs, doesn't it? You know, Mr.
Mm,
Bad Landlord, Mr. Bad this, but it's like shelter, for example, and they want to ban this Section 21. We know you cut a landlord's choice away. What? I can never have my home back. Well, I'm not going to give you the home to start with in the first place. You know, it's like a car rental company. If you, I'm going to borrow you this car. Yeah, but you can never get it back. Well, why not? It's my car. No, and then you'll have no car rental companies left. And this is, you know, and since 2015, since George Osborne did the Section 24 mortgage tax relief, that's when it snowballed. Since then, it got them votes and it got them more income. But how much more are they paying in homeless now? You give us an hour on TV and we can educate. All my tenants know. All my tenants know the truth, and we can educate the rest of them. You know, why the renters form and generation rent calling out for doing something that will cut their supply down. It's utter bonkers. It's absolutely bonkers. You know, I'm going to exaggerate. If you let us run a mock, let us run around, oh yeah, we can do what we like. There'll be lots more landlords. They'll have lots more choice. We'll have to bring prices down. We can charge what we like. We can literally charge what we like because tenants can't get anywhere.
mm. No, it is definitely just, oh yeah, there just seems to be sort of a one-sided sort of view when it comes to in certain parts of the media. And then as well, you were touching on there about the abolition of Section 21 in the Renters Reform Bill. I mean, what's your opinion on that? Do you think, well, obviously we've had Michael Gove say that, oh, we're going to keep Section 21, we're going to abolish it. I mean, do you think that that's actually going to happen?
I don't know. I don't take much notice of it because they're going to do what they like anyway. You know, we've got Ben Beadle fighting the corner good, you know, and he has to, some people call Ben, but he's got to be gentle because if he goes too harsh like I would, they would never talk to me.
Mm,
So is it going to ban sections? I don't know. I really don't know. But we're going to get what they give us anyway because they normally do. We'll have no choice in the matter. I just want to go back to licensing a minute.
yeah, go for
For
it.
example, I've got a 68-year-old tenant. She's been with me 21 years. Licensing now says I have to inspect her every 4 months or 6 months. Why? Is she not trustworthy? She's 68 years old. And these are the things that licensing's problem is it forced a lot of retrospective changes on tenants when they've already lived there 20 years. What licensing should do is make any new houses you buy, any new tenants you get, you will be subject to this. But they did it, everything, as you know, with all the new latest laws, it's all been retrospective. And it's wrong. You know, we've done this, we've looked after, and licensing has increased rent massively as well. You know, we've looked after them for years. We've charged them cheaper. I think a lot of these renters reform and the government and same with the EPCs and whatever, they assume we're all charging an absolute fortune. And we're not. What about us that's charged? Let's say a rent's 900 quid and we're charging 600. What do you think is going to happen to that tenant that's paying 600 if you say, Mick, right, you're now having licensing and you're now going to give that house an EPC. I know you've got a new boiler and this and that, but the only way you're going to get an EPCC is if you put internal wall insulation that's going to cost you £6,000 or £9,000. and the tenant will save £30 a month off a gas bill, but the rent's going to go up to 900 a month. And this is the sort of, the government does not come and ask us, what do you, we're supplying the houses, we are the provider. They should be coming and saying, Mick, what can we do for you? Because you're all selling, we can't get any, what can we do for you? And I say, come and talk to my tenants and ask them what they would like. And they just there's no communication. They just hear from a few bad tenants and they think all landlords are bad with bad asses, and we are not.
No, definitely. And then I think as well, just going on back to the licensing point as well. I mean, I know on Property 118, we've done a lot of stories on Nottingham selective licensing. And I remember one of the key stories we did was about the inspections, that they just don't seem to be inspecting the properties. And I know, I mean, if you could just shed some more light on this, that they don't actually seem, Nottingham, the council don't actually seem to be inspecting the properties.
No, I know at one point they've done something like, I can't remember what it was. It was something like 2% they've inspected, or they found 2% bad houses. That means 98% tenants of 98% of tenants have had a rent increase for nothing. That was roughly 19,800 tenants that's got nothing from licensing whatsoever except a rent increase. I did a thing only a few days ago. I've had one of my tenants, the landlord at the back, has done a bit of a bodge on a fence and put rubbish between the two or something. So my tenants actually phoned licensing to say, right, can you sort this house out at the back? Because that's what licensing's for. Tenants got a problem. So my tenants phoned licensing to say, can you come and look at this? You know what they've done? They've sent a PCSO out. A PCSO. They have no clue about houses whatsoever. And he says, well, I don't know what to do. Well, why aren't they sending a housing expert out? And this is the problem with licensing. I don't know what's going on with licensing, the internal politics. I don't get involved anymore, but I just know that our demand now is massive, and the lower earning tenants cannot move anymore because of selective licensing. If you was a landlord with selective licensing and you saw the conditions, you would never take anyone less than perfect ever again. Because if they do anything wrong, it's all our fault. You know, and it's wrong. We're not a policeman. We're not the judge. We're not the jury. We're a landlord providing a home. We you know, that's where they're getting it. But they want us to do everything.
Exactly. And I know we were touching on earlier about, I mean, what do you think that the government needs to actually do to help keep landlords in the PRS? Because obviously we seem to be having a landlord exodus at the moment, but what do you think? Are there any specific sort of legislation or rules that you would like to see that you think would help landlords stay in the sector?
Well, same as what I said a minute ago, they need to come and ask us. I think one of the biggest thing with the homeless thing is universal credit. Universal credit is brilliant. It's better than I thought it would be in a lot of things, but it's the direct payment is a massive problem. If a tenant's not paid you, there's a safety net in there to say, right, arrears, blah, blah, blah. Very often, and Bill Irvine, the expert, he'll say this as well, they're just reverting payment back to the tenant. Just, hang on a minute, she's in arrears. No, she says she's not. Well, I'm telling you now, she's in arrears. No, she's not. And this is making people homeless. You know, and that's one thing with the direct payment. And another thing, they should be stopping selective licensing. If they start, you've only got to look at the figures. Nottingham, for example, selective licensing coming in 2018. Nottingham's homeless bill is £8 million a year now, plus increasing. And it's all gone up since 2000. I'm not saying selective licensing is the only thing, but at that time it was. You know, and there is other issues at play now, like interest rates and things. But just come and ask us, what can we do for you to correct all this? There's lots of things, but there's no communication. I think with the renters reform bill, I think they had one landlord in or something, just one landlord for evidence, and the rest of it was from the renters groups and tenants that's been agreed and what have you. You know, you've got to stop assuming all landlords are charging a fortune, because we're not. Just stop. Please don't listen. Just them tenants that's got a problem, because you're putting the rest of the tenants' rents up.
No, it is definitely really, really tricky. I mean, at the moment, everything's all seems a bit uncertain and uncertain, sort of choppy waters. What do you think about the future of the private rented sector?
I think around 2018, I thought would be at the worst by 2021. I thought finally the government and MPs are going to wake up and hang on, we've made a mess here. We need to sort this out. But it's getting worse. We're now 3 years later, it's getting worse. I think it's going to take. I think some of these in the renters reform bill, some of the MPs, I know they're homeowners, but because I'm landlords, But because they are landlords, they understand the other side of it as well, and they need to listen to them because they're not. So the future, I think we're going to get worse for another 10 years, or it's going to take 10 years to turn it round. I think that's what will happen, because landlords are just not trusting anyone at all anymore. It's the tenants that's suffering. It's the tenants that's really suffering with high rent. I think we've had about 80% increase in Nottingham in the last 5 or 6 years in rents. You
Oh
know, that's
wow, really?
way more than what it should be. Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
You can charge what you like. You know, I don't have many come empty often, but if I do have a bit of a swap around, they've all bidding on it. So listen, no, I can't, because I've told her, no, if I'll pay you more. And that's what licensing and the government and the renters reform bill. And I'm not political at all, because the Tories have made massive mistakes with universal credit, parts of that. But I think if Labour's going to be getting into the sea, you're going to see landlords selling left, right, and centre, because they're just trapping this hope of what Labour will do.
Mm. No, I mean, definitely. And then I think, yeah, perfectly as you said, I don't think people realise that actually at the end of the day, it's the tenants that are going to suffer.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, and listen, I'm all right. I'm still earning. I can still go on holiday. I can still buy me food. I can still buy me car. But what about the tenants? What about them? We need to be thinking about them. I'd like my tenants to be able to move so I can sell a lot of my houses, but they can't get anywhere anymore because of all these. Unless you're the most super clean, credit-worthy tenant and you're both on 30,000+ a year each, in Nottingham you can't get a house. I'll give you another thing where they've got stupid rules in. You are not allowed to refuse benefit tenants anymore. Well, why not? You are not. So what they're doing now is they're not telling them, and they're just wasting the time and letting them view the property, and they're just doing it on an earnings calculator. Whereas before, at least the tenant knew they was being refused because there was on benefits. Not their fault, it's the system. And there's lots of things that they just brought in that they don't. Another thing, Nottingham in licensing, what they did a few years, and it's even worse now. I think it's something like 350 quid. If an inspector comes out to inspect the house, and the landlord is there, and the inspector is there, but the tenant isn't there, so we can't get in, I get fined 350 quid. Hang on a minute, I've turned up, you've turned up, but so why is that my fault? Who's going to pay that 350 quid? Because I'm not. And you just put the tenant's rent up again. You could go on and on and on and on and on. It's just absolutely horrendous.
Mm.
Just votes
And
winning.
then,
Sorry, it just wins votes, because is there 11 million renters or something like that, and 2 million landlords, and it just gets votes. It's like if we all voted, would you pay no tax? 80% of the country probably say yes. No, I don't want to pay any tax. It just gets them votes, but makes them worse off. But it pleases the government and the voters.
and then you were touching on earlier about if Labour get in, that there would be a massive landlord exodus. Do you believe that a lot of landlords will leave if Labour get in?
I think if they've got warning beforehand, I don't know how these elections work, but yeah, I think a lot of landlords are. A lot of us have been in business years, and we've had enough anyway. And it's just one extra thing that pushes you. They all think this is the problem. They all think us landlords want to keep out. We don't. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot like me that are waiting for that tenant to go before they sell. So we're not callous. We're not horrible people, but we're waiting. But the problem we've got now, that tenant can never go because of the system. But if it's like, for example, when licenses come in, I evicted several families that had damaged the house, and I thought, geez, they're going to make me pay all this money for the thing. So you're making some of these people homeless that would not otherwise be homeless had you not brought in these rules.
Mm. No, it seems sort of the future at the moment. It doesn't look good, but hopefully, who knows? There's some
Yeah.
positive signs
Just
in the
going
future.
back to, I think someone will correct me on this. It was about 1988. Maggie Thatcher, she brought in the section, the short hold tenancy, and I think prior to that, no one could get homes then because landlords couldn't get the houses back. So she brought that in. Landlords thought, I can get my house back now. I'll give you a house. I used to take anyone, won't anymore, and that's where we've got now. And if there's only a few of us benefit landlords in Nottingham, I only talk about Nottingham because I know Nottingham. If I'm not taking them, who's taking them? And they're all in hostels. I know some some people in jobs, in good jobs, that are in hostels 6 months. And I talk to them every day, and they're still in the hostel 6 months later. And they're responsible people. They're in charge of other people in staff, and they can't get a house. And this way, all these regulations and rules are taking, it's just gone really terrible. And the tenants are the real losers in this.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sorry for interrupting. I'm better off because I don't have to do any refurbs because the tenants aren't going. just carries on. You know, I'm sorry, but you're making some landlords better off when we should be making the tenants better off. You know, and
Exactly.
normally to make the tenant better off, you have to make the landlord better off. But you hurt the landlord, you hurt the tenant, and that's
Hmm.
what's happening.
Yeah, no, that's very wise, definitely. And I think as well, I mean, touching on there about the hostels and stuff, I mean, the temporary accommodation, the crisis is absolutely terrible. I mean, I don't know whether you can shed any light on that anymore, but sort of in Nottingham, you're getting a lot of tenants staying in temporary accommodation,
Yeah,
like hostels, I mean, for like six
yeah,
months or
yeah, yeah. And they're not some of these councils now. They're not even taking people on the list. And they say, well, hang
mm,
on, I'm with my 3 kids. I'm living with my mum in a 2-bed house. And they're not even taking them. Sorry, you had a quick house, and that's how bad it's got. You know, you've
mm,
got in Nottingham, the homeless section are very good people. I know quite a few of the people, and they're fantastic. So let's not get confused with Nottingham Council are all imbeciles, because they're not. But then you've got the other side of the council, the licensing. You just need to get the head together. But the people in the homeless side, they don't speak up because they fear for the jobs. Whereas if they was allowed to talk quite frankly, you should have someone in. It's like the councillor is the normal person in the middle, and they're in charge of the licensing and they're in charge of the homeless, but they don't do anything about it. They see the problem from the homeless side, but they don't go and tell licensing side, look, we're making a mess, because they think they're doing a good job because they've employed 76 staff and they've got 20 million quid in just to pay. It's like, for example, when licensing came in 2018, they asked for EPC, your insurance, this, that, mortgage details, mortgage. What do you need all this stuff for? And then now, we told them this was ridiculous, what they needed. 5 years later, they don't need none of that. Well, why not? Well, we asked for too much. Well, we told you 5 years ago you asked for too much. And this is the point. What we say, 4 or 5 years later, they think, yeah, you was right. We rent the house. Listen, I'm not Einstein, right? I'm just a normal lad from Bullwell, little bit clever at maths, not clever at anything else whatsoever. But since you observe these councillors and MPs and people in government in charge of housing, they're all proper thick. They have no common sense. They make me look like Einstein. And I've just become quite knowledgeable just observing these fools that just don't know what they're on about. You know, how many housing ministers we've had? We've had 24, 25
mm,
housing ministers, haven't we?
yeah,
They don't know anything. What's one of them now is in charge of defence or something, and energy before that, Grant Shapps. They don't know anything. They don't know anything about housing whatsoever. We know how to house people safely, and you are taking tenants' choice away, but we can become a rogue landlord and not do that. You know, 8 years ago, if you go on my YouTube channel, we put tenants from El Top Valley, tenants from El Bull, pre-2015. My plumber was 10 minutes late. My tenants could just leave me. Oh, I'm not happy about that, Mick. I'm going, and they'd go. They've got no choice now. They can't go anywhere anymore, and that's what
mm,
all these regulations have done. Now, it's
yeah.
okay saying, oh, this is good for homeowners, and yeah, good, but what about the tenants? You still need somewhere to live. And Shelter keep calling out for council housing. We'll get the council housing built, but they're not building them. So we're your next best option. So work with us. Come and say, what can we do for you? But there's none of it. There's no coming to ask the actual landlords what we would like.
Yeah, well, I think that's the perfect way to end. So hopefully, if any government ministers are watching this, then please go to Mick and please go to landlords and ask what they want. So, thank you again, Mick, for taking your time and
Yeah,
just giving all your thoughts on the private rented sector.
yeah,
Really appreciate your time.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry for rattling on. I rattle on too much.
Not a problem, Mick. It was
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay. See you later.